I will never watch this movie again. And not because it's a bad movie, but because, again, I already don't like horror as it is, but like the concept of the exorcism just, I don't know, it just like completely like freaked me out. So the entire time like I'm watching the movie, I'm watching it like behind my hands and just like completely like unsettled from like from minute one. This is one that I was like dreading because like we've done other like scary movies and stuff like that, but there's just something about like these like Exorcist like type movies that just don't sit right for me. People will probably like watch this and be like, this is like not the like scariest movie, not the goriest movie, but it's just like the concept of like this little girl being like spiritually possessed by like a demon, and you can like see like this demon's like more and more like taking over her, and like sometimes you see in like other possession movies, you see like the spirits like kind of like taking over the person, but only that person like kind of like is aware of it. But then in this one, the demon's like pretty much like just like out there for like everyone to see, kind of like throwing things about the room and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't think this one's completely for me for that particular reason. And again, not to say that it's a bad movie. I know it's a very well made movie, but I think this, like, we've done a lot of like horror movies this past month, and I think this one's pushed me to the edge pretty much.
I was looking forward to talking about this one because throughout the year, every time you've said you don't like horror movies, or you didn't enjoy a horror movie we talked about, I said, before you write off the entire genre, at least give Exorcist a try, right? Yeah. Because that one is number one of the best, or has the reputation for being one of the best, and it's also very different from most horror movies, I think. So I was really curious to get your reaction to it.
It almost feels too real, and I think a common thing that you say is that a good thing, like a good horror, is meant to kind of like remind you of like a real world type of like threat or something like that, something that you're actually like scared of in real life. And this one just felt like it was something that could happen. Even like now, I feel like uncomfortable to say, like even like just like talking about it, it just really kind of freaked me out. Especially, and you see those videos of like people supposedly being possessed in like church and stuff like that, and you've got like the preachers like preaching over them. And for the most part, it does seem nonsense, but there's just something about this that kind of like triggers something in me that makes it feel more real than probably what it even is in this. And again, I've watched like other movies where there is like possessions in there, but I really feel like it's the close ties to like kind of like the religion in this, and like having like the priest there and stuff like that just triggers something in me that I didn't really know was probably there before watching this.
I'm interested in why you think that was.
It just kind of felt like this was like this little girl, like kind of completely being taken over, and the way like she was like kind of like acting, and the way that like the voice was even like kind of coming out of her as well. It just like all felt real.
This movie famously, when it came out, made people faint in the theater, and people by the dozens had to be carried out of the movie theater and stuff like that. And when you see interviews with them, they're just completely freaked out. Like they've just seen the most terrible thing ever. And that kind of gave it the reputation for being the scariest movie ever made, right? When I watched it for the first time 2 years ago, I went in expecting like the goriest, most disturbing imagery I've ever seen. Like I'm not really into like gross out horror, like body horror and that sort of thing. Like if somebody's being mutilated or something, like I'm out of there. Like I don't like it, right? I'm not getting any enjoyment out of it. Like I was expecting stuff like that, right? Like truly disturbing stuff, and there isn't really, right? Like it's not that kind of scary.
No, definitely not. I mean, you have like definitely some like creepy scenes, like when she's like walking down the stairs like backwards and she's got like the blood all over her face. That's like definitely creepy. And like I can imagine for the time as well, we kind of grew up in and we've seen like loads of special effects and stuff like that now. But I can even imagine like when her head's like completely like fully turned on her body and stuff like that, and like even some of like the like gross stuff that she was like spewing out. I can imagine like it being scary for the time, but it's all I feel like for me it's all in the way that the movie like makes you feel as opposed to like what it's shown you. Mm-hmm. Again, I kind of like spoke about like it being like unsettling and sort of it just like having this like kind of like ominous like feeling about it like the entire time that you're watching it. And even when they're trying to sort of get the spirit out of her, like the two priests that were in the room, and sort of you have that scene where she's like kind of like levitating above the bed and this and the other, and he's like, and before that he's like throwing holy water on her. Like all of that just like feels very intense. Like that whole like sequence is just like really, really intense.
Has this made you more or less interested in more horror? Have you reached the finish line now and you're done with horror? Or like if this exists, what else is out there kind of thing?
This has pushed me more towards being done with horror. Not in a bad way in terms of like the movie was like terrible, but I just like it's freaked me out a little bit too much where I couldn't enjoy the movie enough for sort of what it was.